Welcome to the Be a Human in Business show with your hosts, Tracy Borison, founder and personal branding coach at TLB Coaching and Events, Terra Argo, founder and relationship strategist at Argo Operations, TaJuanna Taylor, founder and project management consultant at Bootstrap Dreams, Debbie Aquara, founder and principal consultant at Niche Customer Experience Consulting Firm. Let's start the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Be a Human in Business. We have a really great conversation with you guys today because there is an aspect of being a human in business that sometimes gets overlooked, and we're going to talk about that today. So the title of our episode today is Be a Human in Business, and don't forget yourself in the process. We had this conversation just now, process. We have Americans, Canadians, Nigerians on here. So we'll probably flip-flop between both of those words, just so everybody knows what we're saying. But we really want to talk today about not forgetting yourself, right? Like there's this concept of being a human. And when I think about that specifically from my personal branding background, something that always comes up for me is you're not just trying to be any human, right? Like you're trying to be yourself. And there are things about yourself, things that you can embrace about yourself that actually support you being human in the business process. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of those things today. So is there anybody who would like to kick us off?
Go, Debbie.
Debbie's voluntold.
That's fine.
She's got some. Debbie's gonna drop some gems. She's gonna burst this conversation wide open.
I love
yes, Debbie,
because I love this topic because it speaks to finding your essence, right? And finding your essence is owning you and sustaining you in the process of owning a business or running a business. Because a lot of the time we get caught up in what's ideal for a certain business type that we forget who we are and our identity and why we do what we do in the first place. So, it's at the end of the day, when you talk about being human in business, it's about you first, understanding you, right? And that translates to your business model or how you interact with your clients, how you treat your employees, and how you design your products and services. Because we all have been in corporate and we've basically commercialized our work experience and offering that value to a wider audience. So it goes without saying that, without too much explanation, that for us to have achieved that successfully, I dare say, we have not lost ourselves in the process. We have taken ourselves, packaged it up, and we're selling it, right? That's the essence of who we are. So I just thought to share that, to kick this off because it's a beautiful topic. We all can be doing the same things, but in different ways, in so many different ways. Like that's our essence, right? What do you think, Terra?
No, I agree. I love that. The essence. I think a lot of times too, like when we're coming in as business owners, like we are discovering ourselves as we go as well, and we're making those changes to continue to stay true to ourselves. And I think that is so important, to own our personal brand, own who we are, but also be able to package that up and give it to a wider audience. And I think that, I think it's beautiful that you said finding your essence and owning you and sustaining you. I think that is so key. And so that's kind of my opinion on it. But it is amazing to see all of us and what we can give and the beauty that we get to bring along, and we get to work together to showcase that. TaJuanna?
So you both make some super enriching, contributions to the conversation and some pointers that are so easily forgotten because, like Debbie said, we are conditioned or commercialized, was her actual word, but we are conditioned, particularly as employees, to do things a certain way and to follow a certain culture of things and to make sure that things are politically correct and to make sure, that there's a package. The package needs to look like this and feel like this and be shaped like this and hold like this. Yet in entrepreneurship, right? We can reframe that package. In business, in any way, really, we can reframe that package. However, we have more autonomy as entrepreneurs to do it because, like Terra said, we're making decisions, right, more quickly. And something that comes to mind is that we are definitely challenging the thought process. Well, that's the way it is, or that's the way I've always done it. Challenge that within yourself, right? Be a practitioner of challenging that within self first, and then be a demonstration of it for the external environment, so that they can be inspired, so that they can be equipped and empowered to also challenge that. The other thing that comes to mind is to make sure that we're not just consistently doing things, but that we have continuity with what we're doing. That's, to me, where the sustainability factor comes in. People, it is, I mean, it is an absolute, you know, a song, a theme, an anthem sometimes about, oh, consistency. As a project manager, though, I'm like, but if you're consistently doing it wrong, or if you're consistently doing it in a way that is not productive or proactive towards whatever your aim is, your goal is, stop and find another way, you know? So find a way that has continuity, find a way that will support the betterment of self, the well-being of self, so that we can show up for everything and everyone else that our life requires, or that we absolutely intended to be pursuing or accomplishing, or all those things. So I like the thought processes that you all have shared already. Tracy, what you have on it?
One of the things that I'm just thinking too is that there's so many more parts of you than business. So when we say be a human in business, that's just one little piece of being human in general. And so if you looked at it, I was describing this to somebody just the other day too, in terms of like when I give an introduction, because when I meet new people, I'm a little bit interested in what they do, but I'm a lot more interested in the other parts of them, what they like, what types of adventures they like to go on. I know Terra always asks, where are you from? Or that there's so much more to a human than business. And so bringing that into business is really important, but also remembering every single human you interact with on a business level has so much more to them than just business. I was in a webinar earlier this week about flourishing workplaces and how HR teams can bring like more humanity to being HR. And it was just so cool for me to see this kind of flow of personal branding into that scenario, because whether you're an employee and you have a manager, and a lot of times managers and leaders, they're trying to carry all the weight of people, right? Like, so if you're it could be a leader, the leader in your family, or a leader in the community, or a leader in your business, you're carrying a lot of weight to try and take care of other people. That's a lot of weight. And for someone else to be able to say to you, hey, I understand that you are carrying this weight, and I appreciate that from you, can make all the difference in someone's day. And vice versa as well, right? Like everyone else that exists as part of your network, again, whether it's an employee or your spouse or what have you, there's a recognition of the fact that they are having the rest of this human experience outside of the business, right? My husband is dealing with a bunch of lack of clarity in his role right now, because they're going through a restructuring and people are moving departments, and they've been talking about it for like 4 months now, and they're supposed to get their job letters on March 1st. So like, hopefully they do, but that's a long time for people to sit in uncertainty, right? And I'm not saying you can't avoid uncertainty. I think if we've learned one thing from COVID, it's that you can't avoid uncertainty, but you can appreciate what people are going through and being like, hey, I understand that it is not the easiest to just flounder for 4 months wondering if you have a job, right? Like that's not, like a manager could say that anytime, right? And it's just remembering that. How would you feel? The classic, like put yourself in someone else's shoes. How would you feel? What could you do to just show them that you appreciate that they have the rest of themselves operating outside of the business. And we can show up like that every day.
Every day. And I think like what you expressed about the uncertainty and like, no, it is inevitable in many areas of life. We have a plan. We can't necessarily control, right? We can try to predict, but we can't control the outcome of it. And for me, that brings up the idea, don't wait for the situation to be better in the situation, right? Especially if it's one that you're not trying to per se leave, right? It's not a situation that you're trying to extract yourself from. In the case of a job situation, there are times where as the employee, you may not be privy to the whys and the whats and the whatever the case may be. I don't care what your position is. There are just some things, that sometimes you're told why, sometimes you don't have the why, but you have your why, right? Like we each have our own personal why. And so it's like you said, Tracy, like, well, what can I do then to either one, let me start with self, put on my oxygen mask. What can I do to put on my oxygen mask? And then how can I assist the passengers around me? Because I haven't put my whole self into this one thing and let that this one thing consume me. I have chosen to say, okay, this is happening. I recognize that I may not even like it. However, this isn't the whole makeup of me. This isn't the whole makeup of my reality. It's a portion of it. So am I going to let this one thing control my entire reality? Or am I going to say, okay, this is one thing that's happening. Now let me tap into the other parts of me and let that resonate and let that, let that shine, let that help other people to glow up in the what can be simple as day-to-day living, in the inevitable. There's things that we do know. We need to nourish. It helps to smile, even with masks. You can see in someone's eyes what's happening, right? The smiles, like just those little a head nod, just those little gestures that we can do, sending electronic communication. Hey, like there's just little gestures that we can do to not forget ourselves and lose ourselves in the process, and make sure that we're making time for ourselves as well. We talk about whether you theme day or you calendar block or whatever, like when you have your time, when you decide you're going to have your time, do little things for you so that as everything else is happening and stirring up, you're still anchored in something bigger than that temporary circumstance, that temporary, happening. So yeah, this is really good because there's so many components to it.
Yeah, there are so many. And speaking of why, it's funny because we're all in business for different reasons, right? And not losing yourself in the process, like you rightly said, TaJuanna, is remembering your why. It's so important. Remembering in the midst of everything else, it gets really crazy. Business grows, you hire more people, you expand. Not losing yourself is always connecting with your why. And it's very easy to lose that why, right? Too many things, we were on the call yesterday, we were on the call the other day talking about, just practicing, right? And doing stuff for clients and, the whole place of structure, terms and conditions, all of that. At the end of the day, you remember, look, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right? This is why I do what I do. This is why I have a branding business or an operations management. This is what I do, right? And it reminds me of two scenarios. So in the company I used to work in the bank, there's the owner of the bank, somebody who had worked in the bank for over 20 years, committed a fraud. Now, the MD at the time, who obviously was an office clerk, grew through the ranks, now owned the bank. He didn't sack him. He asked him to resign because he had been with him for 20 years. At the end of the day, it comes to the why. Like under normal circumstances, it's about he actually stole money. So fire him, the policy says, right? But being human, he remembered that why. And for me, I still remember till today because that was a huge lesson for me. He just said, no, I can't fire him. He's been with this drink for 20 years. Advise him to resign. So he was given that option, right? Another scenario was my own experience. In fact, two scenarios. So I got on my last job, I resumed, and my very first task was to fire someone. Now, I'm not that person. I'm not that person. And, first task, so I'm like, okay, fire someone. Is that how I want to be perceived? Right? My why. And I looked for loopholes. So I said, can I see the HR policy with regards to hiring people? Now, the policy said if someone does not perform on a job within a 6-month period, he should be put on probation. So I asked, has he been put on probation? And they said, no, he had only worked for 3 months. So I had that to say, in line with the policy, here's my recommendation, right? Put him on a probation. I would work with him. If he does not improve after 3 months, then let him go. And he actually improved. And we kept him. The second scenario for me was someone who stole money the first time, went on suspension, I stuck my neck out, and he stole again. Now, the a friend of mine who works in HR said to me, obviously we had to fire him because now my hands were tied. And I was so mad at him, like, look, I've stuck my neck out for you. When I do these things and you don't live up to expect, it puts me in bad light. So when I put my neck out for someone tomorrow, they won't hold any water to it, right? And a friend asked me and said, Debbie, I have a question for you. If this was your company, would you still fire him? And I said, if this was my company, I would reassign him and not fire him, right? Reassign him to a role where, because this guy gets stuff done. Like, he gets stuff done. He's so committed. Someone that would not go to sleep until he completes his task. And for me, that's like the why, right? So for me, I don't know, ladies, I don't know what your why, but for me, my whys are 3 things. It's my passion, it's structure, and my compassion. Those are the 3 things that, that keep me, that help me remember myself. Like my passion, structure, obviously there has to be a method to the madness. And then my compassion. And compassion for me that's the being human in business element. I don't know what you ladies think. What do you think?
Debbie, that is really good. I think for me, my kind of 3 things I would say right off the top would be integrity. Integrity is very important to me. And if you don't have integrity, like, we're probably not going to be able to work together kind of situation. Like, that's how important it is to me. And mine is passion too. You guys know I'm extremely passionate about many, many things. And then there was one other thing I was going to say based off of that, but let me come back to it because I want to say something else that you really, really struck a nerve with me too. Being like, when you're connected to people too, it's so important to connect with people that keep you grounded. As you grow and as you change and all of that is so important to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people, because a lot of times that why then gets clouded if we don't have somebody to say, hey, snap back in there. Like, what are you doing? That didn't even make sense, or to encourage you as you're continuing to further your mission or your objective, whatever that is. So I think it is really crucial. And then another thing, like when I was in corporate, I'm not kidding. And I know you guys have heard me say this several times, but I didn't take care of myself. I quit I had completely forgotten myself because I always put everyone else before myself. Oh, I was going to tell you what it was, Debbie. It's my empathy. So mine's kind of compassion and empathy. So I am very empathetic to the point that I feel people's pain. Like if you're going through, TaJuanna can tell you, we were on a call one day and I'm sobbing with her. I don't even know the lady, but you know what? I felt the pain in her and that touches me and that allows me to connect in a different way. So integrity, passion, and empathy for me would be those 3 things. But sorry, I was excited about that and I at the time couldn't remember it, but so I had lost myself. And as I start to come out of that mindset and as I start to discover myself, and TaJuanna at one time said, Terra, you have to take care of yourself. And I know that all of you guys have encouraged me to like make sure that you're allowing time for yourself as a person too, because I can give and give and give like I love to do and I love to serve. But at some point, we talked about this yesterday, Like Terra needs to do something for herself. And so that is something that I like have continued to have to learn. And I know that I'm not the only person that, you know, gave and gave to our corporate careers and all of that. And then now we're looking inside of ourselves and like transforming and learning and trying to just identify and make sure that we take care of ourselves in that capacity as well.
I would love to add on to that. Sorry, TaJuanna.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Then TaJuanna next. So like something that I always found too, specifically in corporate, is that people just don't, it's not part of policy to create the space for people to have that, to have space, right? So like, it's always kind of up to you to just be like, okay, I work 9 to 5, and then my me time has to be outside of that. And it just is structured that way. And it was always really interesting to me because when I managed people, I believe that people in their top state, in as close to 100% alignment with their personal brand as possible, will do the best work. And so something I always tried to do is figure out what could do that. And I had some employees that I know I've talked to you guys about this before, and I never can remember the like name of it, but there's like a time blocking scenario that people use where you work for like 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break and you like switch back and forth. And I had an employee who was like, that works the best for me. And I was like, great. I can't guarantee I can always like never have an hour-long meeting or anything like that, but we can do as much as we can to facilitate that for you. And then those people just like, they give you all the things because they're in a place to do their best work. They are connected to their why. So I always thought too, like from a corporate perspective, a lot of times it's like the CEO or whoever has their why, and it's the why of the company. And then everybody else is just supposed to believe that to the same degree that the CEO does. And it just like, it doesn't make sense. You can be on the same path, but every single person has their own why. And if you can get every single person's why aligned, then you have a powerhouse like steam engine that can't be stopped in terms of a business, right? And I think that is one of the things that I love. All the heads are like, yeah. Like, I feel like that is something that the 4 of us have found in this scenario is just like, we all have our own whys. And I'm going to share my 3 why words just because now we're doing that. We all have our own whys, but they're aligned in such a way that you can just make a difference. And that's the point, not assuming that your why is someone else's why. Finding out what their why is and supporting them in their why is the whole point. Being a human. Okay. So my 3 whys, I didn't write them down. So we'll see what comes out. I can't not say my family on this one, you guys. Like, they're just a huge why for me, and they're a huge part of how I build my business and how I do my business and how I show up in my business, right? Like, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I have no interest in being not those things, right? Like, this is part of who I am, and that's a big part of me. I actually, stay tuned on Monday, I got a blog post coming out about family values as brand values. But that's a huge part of my why, is my family. The other thing is voices. Everybody has a beautiful voice, whether that's made for singing or not, different conversation. But like, everybody has something beautiful to say. And for too long, the voices who have divisive and hateful things to say have won. And that's ridiculous because it's not the most amount of people. It's not the biggest percentage of people. Most people have something good, helpful, kind, loving to say. People need to say that. I actually feel like this is my why, is so more people can have their voice. It's a very, very, very important thing to me. And then the other one for me, and I don't want to say, like, I believe integrity is important. I believe compassion is important. I believe lots of these things we've already talked about are importance. But the other thing for me is fun. I believe that when you are acting in, I don't believe in 100% anything, but 98% alignment with your personal brand, you are having fun. Like, I'm having so much fun having this conversation right now. I have so much fun in my business. I have fun making number trains with my son, right? Like, I have fun in my life because I am finding space to remember who I am. So when we think about the whole concept of today's episode, which is forgetting yourself in the process, a lot of times people just think like, I didn't assign time, and that means I forgot. But you can remember, right? Like, it's not just a matter of giving yourself more time, because you can use that time to still be in a state of not being connected with who you are. Use that time to remember who you are. I challenge people to do this. I don't even know if anybody has done it for 10 minutes except myself, but I have this concept that I call 10 minutes on purpose. And the whole concept is to take 10 minutes every day to do nothing except be yourself. So like, go for a walk, sit down, drink a cup of tea, whatever that you-ness is for you, and just be yourself and celebrate the you-ness of you. Because you guys, I know some people are like, oh, this feels so awkward. A lot of people have told me that it's awkward. It's because you don't do it. You have to practice. Like walking, you have to learn how to walk, right? Like, you have to learn these things. But like, living in that just gives you a ridiculous amount of clarity on how to remember to be yourself. It sets you up every day in every task, whether it's business, personal, relationships, whatever, to be yourself. That's the point. That's why we are all made differently, is so that we can be ourselves. If we were all meant to be the same, we would all look the same, we would all sound the same, we would all think the same. And that would be totally boring, I think. So it's the point of being different and having some time every day to celebrate what makes you unique and what makes you fun and passionate and compassionate. Like, it's so good. So I encourage you guys to try it. I always ask people for feedback too. One day I'm going to get like really excited feedback besides like this was so hard. But yeah, those are my whys. And now I want to hear TaJuanna's whys.
This is so good because we didn't plan this at all. But see, I told you Debbie was going to pop this thing off for us. So my 3 words, as I'm thinking and I'm like, okay, what are my 3 words? And definitely I could piggyback back off of Terra with integrity. I'd like to switch that synonyms here, synonymous with faith. Faith drives the integrity part for me. Not perfect. No, I am not professing to be. Yet faith is one of the things that keeps me up, is one of the things that helps me have morality in my decision making, right? And it also helps me be human, because that army daughter can come out of me and be like, you know what the expectation was, right? But I also don't expect that from anybody else that I don't expect from myself. So it's like when things happen, I go into it thinking like, it's crackdown. I knew, right? I knew. And even if I didn't know, if there's a rule, ignorance doesn't make me exempt from whatever the consequence is, right? So the faith part comes in because, again, it helps me choose integrity in my decision making, and it helps me have compassion for people, to have a grace for the people factor. So it's like, here's the fact, but then here's the autonomy that I can have to be human, right? And then loyalty. So you will often hear me talk about facts over feelings, most always. And more so in the sense of, even when we don't feel like doing something, if we've committed to doing it, whether it's for ourselves personally or whether it's for someone or something externally, do it anyway, right? Be a person of your word. Be a person that you can be entrusted, you can be relied on, you can be dependent on. Not that to the extent of oh, the world doesn't survive without you, because it will keep revolving. Be someone, though, that people can know without a doubt, if needed to, if wanted to, that they can turn to you, right? And so loyalty would be my next thing. And then again, that loyalty, going back to the morality, right? Because don't be loyal to the detriment of something. And then flexibility is my why too. Like when I talk about my journey of going into full-time entrepreneurship, as a mother and a single mother by divorce, I definitely didn't go into entrepreneurship because I wanted to be home with my daughter. No, That's not why. That was not my why. I didn't want to be closer. I just didn't know closer meant we were going to be doing virtual kindergarten, right? But my why is I wanted the flexibility. I did not want to be bound by somebody else's perception that, oh, if I'm not on site, if they can't reach me physically, that I am not doing my job, that I don't have the capability, capacity, or the competency to get the work done. We're all professionals. We're all adults here. We were all employed, and a lot of us are employed before that personality ever comes into the workspace. And so when those type of instances come in, it's like, well, wait a minute now. I've been doing this for 10 years, not awards, and all of a sudden I can't get my job done, right? And so for me, it's flexibility is a big part of it. And not just as a professional, because like Tracy said, it's not just about business. It's not just about being a professional, but in life, because routines have a benefit. Then we also have to be flexible to make shifts when those routines no longer serve us. And so having that autonomy, having that flexibility to be like, well, I would prefer to do it this way. And that way was working for me, but for whatever reason in this season now, it's not. So I got to change something and just trying those things until I find a fit, and then being willing to try it again. So faith, loyalty, and flexibility are the things that are like undergirth my why, or support my whys when I go about doing things. And I recognize that it doesn't always make sense to other people, yet it makes sense. It's the why. It's for me. And so starting with self first, with the intent to be selfless, so that I can be here, present, well, and available, to serve others. So I like this round robin that we did in defining and kind of coming up with what words help us identify our whys. This was good.
I have to piggyback on that, because I don't know if I've told you guys, but I usually have like a big sticky note, and I have several whys. And so, which I didn't even mention those. And after you guys were talking, I'm like, those are my whys too. And just so you know, like my faith is extremely important to me. And I always felt like I was designed, and I felt like the Lord had always said, there's something more that you need to do. But I didn't know what that was. And then when COVID hit, I discovered that I didn't know my daughter. And I know you guys have all heard me talk about this story, but once I discovered I didn't know my daughter, because I was leaving at 7 a.m., dropping her off at school, picking her up at 7 p.m., running the rat race, traveling all over Oklahoma, doing all of that. And I was fulfilling everyone else's why and the goals of the organization. And I was being the face and doing all this different stuff. But then I was like, wait a minute. Do I want to wake up when I'm 65 and go, I didn't know my daughter, she's gone now. Like she has her own family. Like, and it still tears me up to even think about that I even went through that. But thank God he pulled the veil off my eyes, and it was exposed to me that I knew I always needed to do more, and there was something I was destined to do, which is just what I'm doing here with you guys. And we're going to make an impact and a movement in this world, but also that my family needed me, and I didn't even know it. So those are truly the reason I started my business, was because of those two things. Now the integrity and how all of those other things play into it are Terra's values. Absolutely. Honesty, transparency, all of that stuff are extremely important to me. But the basic foundation of me, that's like what encompasses that. Sorry, I get it teary-eyed when I think about it, because it's that important to me.
But that's good though. And we're definitely not saying these are the only three things, right? We're just saying if we had to package them up and summarize them, because listen, our lists can go on for a day. We can fill up the walls behind us with tons of sticky notes with words and descriptions of whys, So as we encourage you all to do this exercise with us, and we're saying, hey, take a pause for a moment, take an adult pause for a moment, and ask yourself why. Wherever you are in season right now, ask yourself why. And if you can just come up with three words, because that's a lot of times, like Tracy said, I ask people to do these 10 minutes exercises. Don't know if everybody always does it, because sometimes it is a lot. It is a lot. We have a lot of stuff as humans, as adults, as professionals. We have a lot of stuff to unpack. Yet if we just simplify it and take a moment to sit 10 minutes with ourselves, and just 3 words that can summarize your why. And if you can just focus on those 3 words, at different moments of the day, whether it's the top of your day, the middle of the day, the end of your day. People like me, multiple times a day. I need to think about those 3 words multiple times a day to make sure I'm in alignment, right, with that why. So we're not minimizing it. We're not saying it's just that simple. We are encouraging you to take a pause and to come up with 3 words, revisit those 3 words, so that if you haven't been feeling well, if you mentally or emotionally, you feel like you are not in tune with yourself, here's the opportunity to get in tune with yourself. And if you don't like who self was yesterday, here's an opportunity to change who self can be today and tomorrow and beyond. So take a moment to do this exercise as we've just done. Literally, we did not plan it. We knew our topic, but we did not think we were going to come up with 3 whys and share them with ourselves. And we learn more and more about ourselves and about one another every time we do it. So do that with us and put it in the comments of this episode so that we can see, and feel you as you're becoming a human in business about your whys too, because they absolutely matter.
And I think one of the other things I'd like to add on to that is remember that other people have their whys, right? So like, again, we came into this conversation, we didn't know we were going to talk about our 3 whys today, but now that I know, like I have more clarity on everybody else's why. And so if they need some space, or they need a day off, or they need to get on a call and talk about something, I can understand that a lot better because I know what their whys are. And so all of that time, so I'm sure a lot of people watching are like, oh, I'm going to do that activity. I'm going to do my 3 whys, or you're thinking about your 3 whys, and that's awesome. And ask your spouse, ask your best friend, ask, like, I don't know. I'm going to ask my husband after this. Like, I'm thinking about my best friend. Like, I don't know her whys, right? Like, that would be so cool. Like, how much better of a friend, a spouse, like a human do I get to be because I took a minute to understand someone else's why? That is just like a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I know the quote is coming to mind about when you shine your own light, you give others the opportunity to shine theirs. And when I get to be a role model in remembering myself in business and in life, I get to shine that light on other people and give them the space to do that as well. Like that we're not here to just be like, okay, now we're all going to know our whys and support our own whys. It's good. Step 1. And how much greater could it be if we bring that to all of the people that you touch? Like we touch, I don't know how many people are going to watch this episode. Let's make it huge. 1 million people. 1 million people are going to watch this episode. And then like every one of those people has a network of 100 people. That's a small amount, right? Like you guys, this can touch the world by you doing one thing, taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes to think about your why and taking 5 more minutes to ask someone else theirs. It's a really, really powerful exercise. I want to hear Debbie's thoughts too.
I'm so excited about this, ladies. Help me out here. Because the truth is, and as you were speaking, as you were talking, TaJuanna, and just wrapped up, Tracy, what just triggered, what just the aha moment for me now is your why. Understanding that, going through that exercise is amazing, right? And understanding your why attracts your why, right? Understanding your why attracts your why. And I'm just thinking, because the whole point of doing business and finding your why, I mean, being human in business and finding your why is, it just helps you putting things in perspective, right? And attracting, so that's like saying customer segmentation. You know there's a market that you need to serve that will understand what it is that you're trying to offer. And it's an amazing thing. To be honest, ladies, I have about 90-something affirmations in my Bible. So every morning when I'm not going to pretend I study every day, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I don't. But when I'm done studying the word and praying, I like, it's like 4 sheets of paper front and back. And it has affirmations of where I'm going, my why, right? So there's something on there that says what I'm passionate about, structure and compassion. Then there's something on there that talks about I will do better than I did yesterday. And there's something on there that talks about I will attract the right clients and the right employees. because it's pulling them into my why as a business owner, right? So even I have people who will send me messages on all my staff reached out. We love what you do, want to be a part of it. So they identify with my why. So when I'm not myself, and when, as a business owner, when you're not yourself and you don't put forth your why, you don't attract what you should attract. You attract the wrong things. So you start to fight battles that you don't need to fight. And for me, that's Tracy, that speaks to, not everybody has to, everybody has a why, right? But if our whys align, it forms a powerful team. And the only way the whys can align is if we know the whys. Right? So not losing yourself in the process is required to be successful in business and be human in business, what I would say.
That's so good. It makes me think about, personality profiles. There are tons of them out there. There are some that are more popular than others right now, yet whichever one you choose to take, right, go online, Google it. Whichever one you choose to take will also help you understand you and the whys that you choose to, right? Tracy mentioned something so important, like being tolerant, for lack of better words, of other people's why. You don't have to agree with them. We're not saying you have to choose them. We're just saying be aware of them so that way you can understand the people around you. You know how to navigate the instances and the people and the personalities that are presented to you, and that you don't get lost in all of it as you encounter these things. And so understanding your why, like Debbie just said, understanding your why attracts your why. Truth, right? We can be guilty by association, right? Or we can, as Tracy said, we can shine our light and let others, lights have room to shine as well. Or there's that quote, like, we rise by lifting others, right? Like, whatever your why is, it can promote either one of those things. And you've got to ask yourself, what is meaningful to me right now in this season? And I think another thing that will help this, because we are professionals and we do have a business side to this, and while we're encouraging you to still be a human in business, whether you are employed or self-employed, when you're thinking about your 3 words and you want to package up, because and Tracy can talk a lot about this, you can find her group with the personal brand, right? Your personal and your professional don't have to be so separate, right? How you function in those spaces may look different, but you don't have to be 2 different people in your personal life and in your professional life. You can still have the same core values driving you wherever you go. So think about yourself, think about your family, whatever family means to you, whatever that looks like, and think about, for the sake of business, whether it's your business or the business that you represent, right, as an employee or otherwise, what words across those 3 things are of significant value and help you have your personal identity, help you have your personal brand, help you show up every day and do it in excellence, not perfection, right? So we just really want to celebrate, this opportunity to not forget yourself in the process of being you and being the professional that you intended to be when you pursued the very opportunity that you have.
I need to just say something on that. I'm busting at the seams. 2 things. So first of all, I just want to touch on what TaJuanna mentioned about, like, how you show up in business and how you show up in your personal life, right? You aren't 2 people. You aren't meant to be 2 people in those different scenarios. So when you are trying to have your, like, professional profile and your personal profile, like, I don't know how many people are watching this who have their, like, LinkedIn professional profile and their Facebook friends profile, right? You're not 2 different people. You're the same person. So when you're trying to show up some way differently in one of those areas, you are faking. You're faking it, right? That's not the point. The point isn't to fake it. It's to remember how to be yourself, and that you can show up in those different capacities as yourself. That is possible. So I just wanted to reiterate that, because that is possible, and it's actually impossible to show up authentically in 2 separate ways. It's just not. You're only one person. You're only one way. Secondly, I wanted to do a quick throwback to our last episode with Lindsay, because we were talking a lot about like I got too excited about the last point. Forgot where I was going with this one.
This is exciting.
Just shoot it. Shoot it.
Something that we talked about with Lindsay, I felt like we wanted to throw back to. Is it on everybody else's brain?
I guess it's the identity thing.
I'm sure we did something about identity.
Yeah.
No,
Like,
and I
what
like
comes to
that.
mind-
I think you're right or I know you're right. When it comes to why would you want to act in two different capacities? Like that's a lot of work. And let's
So
be
much.
real. Like I want people to know Terra, the authentic Terra.
Exactly.
And and I'm genuine in that I love to connect with people. So I really like this challenge that we're kind of throwing out there. Like find your why and then like discuss it, even with those that are closest to you, because then you guys know, when I connect with people, I even figure out what their values are, what their passions are, what they like to do for fun. Like that stuff is super, where they live, because that's obviously very important to me too. But that stuff is important to me. And when you know people's why, you can also support them in a different capacity. So it is so crucial. Don't show up in two different ways. Show up as one unique person. God designed you that way. Like be yourself and just enjoy that and like share it with the world.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. If the suit doesn't fit you, you don't have to wear it.
I agree. I
Knew
agree.
there was something. There was something
I
there.
agree. And talking about family, Tracy, there are two scenarios, like two things happen to me, right? I've always wanted, when I turned 40, that my dream was to leave paid employment, have my own business, and my daughter I can pick her up, she can be with me at work, just kind of live life and bond together. And I was talking to one of my mentors, and I was like, okay, I was pitching to a client, and he said, you have to have a housekeeper. I don't need a nanny for my daughter, right? He said, no, you have to have one. You can't show up at your client's office with your daughter. I mean, that's a professional, And I said, what if you go for a meeting and the MD of the company says, it's time to pick up. So I have a hard stop. When the meeting I go for, I have a hard stop for 2 p.m. so that I can meet school pickup, right? And he goes, what if the MD of the company is delayed and says, wait another hour? And I'm like, I won't stay. And he says, why? And I'm like, all of my time already. I have a hard stop. I have family obligations. I take them very seriously. And he told me I wasn't serious. And I said, I think that is true. Then that's not for me. That's not my client. That's not my client. Because right now, until she goes off to boarding school, any client who will tell me I have to be here and I cannot take care of my child, I'm not going to have a repeat of corporate. No way. Absolutely not. Do you understand? And this scenario was, a client said to me, I have a project. I need you 247. They had a guest house. He said, I know your daughter is very important to you. Bring her along. She will stay in the guest house with you. She'll be well cared for and everything. And in my mind, I'm like, exactly. How hard can that be? Like, why can't my child come with me to work? They're on holidays, right? It's on holidays. So family, Tracy just hit the note with me on there. Like, family is important. And if I had not put out that why, that client would have had that in mind to know that if Debbie has to stay, her daughter has to be taken care of. So it is to your disadvantage when you put out two personalities in business. Number one, it shows that you're not even human to start with. And the second thing, your clients, your employees, they will know you. They'll be as confused as you are. I just thought to share that.
That is so good, because I feel stirred up, right? Because as much as I'm like, "Woo, parenting's hard," right? As much as that's my song, when it came down to work, I asked you for forgiveness, not permission, when it comes to me being a mother. I'm not asking to be off because my daughter has a need. I'm informing you because I'm going to communicate it effectively, and I'm going, right? Like that. I don't know how else to communicate that. There are something, when you know your why, there's some things that are non-negotiable. And being my daughter's mother, for me, is non-negotiable. And like Debbie said, if there's something that doesn't work, and if a career opportunity of any kind presents itself to the extent that I can't show up for her in business, again, this is just me, right? I know we have people who are in the armed forces and do all of these things, and that's their choice, and they have the support systems to do it. for me, when I make my mind up that right now in this season, I am going to be my daughter's mother, and that means being present and available, I'm not asking, right? Like, either we can co-create something that works, or the opportunity isn't for me. And that's just it. And you'll find somebody. I'm not the only one in the world that can do what I can do. You can find somebody else. It's who do you want to work with, and it's who wants to work with me and my family, right? So I think it is so important to know that why, so that you show up authentically, so that you show up consistently with continuity, right? In a way that gives you continuity to be the best you in your multifaceted reality. I think those things are so significant, and you guys have given some truly valuable demonstrations, or examples of why and sticking to that why is important.
I got one more thing based off of what TaJuanna just said too, is that if when you know people's whys, and you do want to, so like there's a lot of things that I would want to work with TaJuanna on, and we're both parents, right? So sometimes that's going to win the day. But at the same time, it gives you access to a level of creativity that you don't have if you're not using your why. So when two people are using both of their whys to come up with a solution, there's so many more opportunities than like the corporate box, right? We've talked a lot about that. Corporate kind of operates in a box, and this is how you do it, and that's it. But all the creativity comes outside of that box, and that's the fun. That's what makes it easier for people to do that. And then it's what makes it easier to get better results too as a team, right? You can get levels of results you never thought you had because you're being creative and you're not trapped in this box. So there's just, I think what we're all saying here today is there's so many benefits of not forgetting yourself in the process, right? So remember yourself, remember everybody else needs that space as well, that we want to be able to show them the way and show them that it's possible. We want to show you guys, all of you guys, that there is space for you to remember to be you. And there's so many benefits associated with that. So with that, throw it back to TaJuanna, because you know she's got a summary.
Here we go, people. So today's episode, we talked, right? So we talked about don't forget yourself in the process. That is the topic, that is the theme, that is the truth that we want you to embody, right? We talked about finding your essence, owning and sustaining you, how important it is for you to be a part of your why. Your why doesn't exist without you. That's why it's yours, right? Challenging the thought that this is the way it is always done. You can find another way. You can find another way. There's so many parts to you than just being a professional and then just the business, right? Be a human. Even if you don't know their why, remember your why, okay? These are things that we've emphasized. And then we give you a challenge. We're challenging you, and we are really encouraging you to put it in the comments, to message us. Let us know if you're like, oh, I don't want everybody to know. Send us a message. Let us know your why. Take 10 minutes on purpose and choose 3 words to define, to get clear about, and that you can own in your why. Think about yourself. Think about your family, whatever family means to you, and think about professional, right? Business. What are 3 words that will help you show up in those places every day, right? Every day in excellence. And then understanding your why attracts your why. You aren't 2 people. You are 1 person, and use your why to come up with a solution to get better results. That is the topic, the message of today.
I think we even surprise ourselves with how good we are, do we?
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us
so
for this fantastic episode. We hope you guys stay tuned, subscribe so you get notified when we drop a new episode. We've got a whole bunch of really awesome guests coming up on episodes soon. We really are excited to see your guys' why. And until then, remember, be human.
Be human.